Sunderland.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm grateful to be called so early in this key debate, having been unable to speak at second reading. I wish, therefore, if I may, to speak in general terms. The first duty of any government is to protect its people from harm. It's called defence of the realm. And given that this overrides all other considerations, we do need to see this bill set in context against the many existential threats that we face on a daily basis, many of which are hidden in the shadows and which may never reveal themselves until it's too late. We also need to consider those in whom we trust to keep us safe by empowering, not inhibiting what they do. Our security services are only ever as good as the tools that their operators are given and the legal framework in which they work. So not only is this bill a necessary piece of legislation in its own right, it provides a further insurance policy against those who seek to destroy the freedoms and the democracy that we take for granted. Having personally served in uniform, I'm comfortable that this government continues to do what it must to give our intelligence services what they need to do their job. By allowing criminal conduct authorisations in the pursuit of covert human intelligence sources, their operating freedoms are rightly maintained to allow them to close on those who threaten us and bring them to justice. But let's be clear, these powers are only to be used in extremis, when the operational circumstances necessitate, when quick decisions are needed, or when there is no other way to avoid compromise. And to think that our operators are naturally predisposed to committing murder, torture or sex crimes, or that this bill somehow encourages them to do so is just wrong. The need to exercise discretion and judgment actually lies at the heart of what we ask our services to perform. And not only are these people good at what they do, they also intuitively know the difference between right and wrong. So it is right that a CCA may be granted where necessary for one of three purposes, namely national security, the prevention or detection of crime, or in the interest of the economic well-being of the UK. I'm happy too that under Clause 2, only responsible bodies such as the police, NCA, Serious Fraud Office or the security services will be entrusted to do so, albeit with further work needed beyond the scope of this bill on appropriate operating procedures. I also agree with my friends on the opposition benches that it may be, for example, that rules of engagement might be provided in each particular case and that there is further work to do. And at Clause 4, it is right that the Investigatory Powers Commissioner will exercise oversight of all authorising bodies, not least to ensure that unlimited powers to commit any crimes are never granted and to rightly prosecute where criminality occurs. I noted during the second reading that the Secretary of State was continually pressed on which practices might be exempt or otherwise. His stance that it would not be appropriate to draw up a list of specific crimes is right, for to do so would place in the hands of criminals, terrorists and hostile states a means of identifying our agents and sources, creating a potential checklist for suspected operators to be tested against. And the chair of the Intelligence and the Security Committee also recognised how easy it would be for groups to flush out agents if they were aware of human intelligence being prohibited from certain acts, calling it, and I quote, dangerously counterproductive. Whilst my own knowledge of covert operations is limited, I can tell you that the work is difficult and dangerous. Please.
On that point around people trying to flush out covert agents by getting them to do things that were on this supposed list, is he saying, therefore, that the Human Rights Act doesn't provide any prevention for people not being able to do things, or that the Human Rights Act does provide that potential to prevent certain actions, so therefore is already a list? I'm confused which way it is.
I thank the member for his intervention. My key point is that the Human Rights Act does provide those protections, but in the context of operational service, at the point of which decisions have to be taken, I believe those protections are needed. Unlike most of our conventional forces, operators often work isolated and alone, making snap decisions that allow them to maintain trust and avoid detection. So rather and it refers back to my previous point, then isolate them further, they need to know that their decisions and actions, when made in good faith and often under extreme stress, will be supported when the time comes. And it is this discretion which lies at the heart of what they do. And more fool us in this place should we choose to undermine them or hang them out to dry from the sanctity of our courtrooms. The recent evidence on why this bill is necessary speaks for itself. Since March 2017, MI5 and counter-terrorism police have thwarted at least 27 terror attacks on home soil. In 2017, covert operations infiltrated a criminal organisation to stop a planned attack on Downing Street. In 2018, the National Crime Agency disrupted over 30 threats to life, seized over 3,000 kilograms of Class A drugs, safeguarded over 200 people, and removed almost 100 firearms and 4,000 rounds of ammunition off the street. Between 2017 and 2019, HMRC has prevented hundreds of millions of pounds of tax loss, with one case alone estimated to have saved the Treasury over £100 million. And such is the wider utility and benefit of our intelligence sources across a whole range of authorised bodies, that what else do we not know? So on to some detail, if I may. I am sympathetic to New Clause 3 about oversight of the ISC, but I'm not convinced that the equality impact assessment cited at New Clause 2 or the blacklisting cited at Clause 6 and New Clause 5 would be feasible. I am sympathetic, however, to New Clause 8 in respect of CCAs being granted against under 18s and vulnerable people, but I think it would be difficult to implement in the field. So to conclude, Madam Deputy Speaker, it is not always ours to reason why from the privilege of this place, or to cast judgment on those who face more danger on a daily basis than we can imagine. So to those who insist via Amendment 7 that a criminal conduct authorisation should only be provided once a warrant has been issued by a judge or that a time limit is given, I cannot agree. Similarly, to those who seek to balance the size and scope of the proposed activity against the gravity or the extent of the perceived crime, I regret that our operators will rarely have the luxury to do so when danger is upon them. Given that our primary responsibility in this place is to keep our people safe and to allow those entrusted to do so to operate as they must, I will vote today on putting this bill through. Thank you.
Well done, James. Committee Yvette Cooper.
Thank you.